Hello, welcome back to my channel about my working holiday visa in Australia. So this one is for friends and family who love New York. Kat and I both lived in New York City for a few years after college, and we couldn't help but compare areas of Sydney to New York City neighborhoods. Now, this is all based on first impressions. Again, this is all based on like the first week that we saw these places. We can't really speak to what they're like. This is just kind of what made us feel like more at home and familiar to where we had just lived before this. This is also not very serious, so don't want to offend anyone from Australia or New York City if you don't like the comparison. So I'm going to take you through what parts of Sydney we think are compared to New York City neighborhoods. The first time this hit us is when we went to the Ferry Port where the Sydney Opera House is and the area kind of surrounding that. Can anyone from Australia tell me what to call this area? I would just look at it as downtown Sydney. So this area to me is the financial district of New York City. There's tall buildings, wider sidewalks, it's by the water, you can catch the ferry, and it has more of like a businessy feel to the area. Also, one of the only reasons we've come over here was to get coffee, and I spent like $30 on a burger. And it was delicious. As you would in New York City, we hopped on the ferry to go to Manly, which we are saying is the Dumbo of New York City. We even saw what we think is a Ferris wheel across the way. It is a pricey area with fancy restaurants on the water, some expensive apartments by the beach, and there's also a street with more of a market feel for food called the Corso, and the area surrounding the shops is also nicer homes. Then that day we took the train to Newtown. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. As soon as we got there, we walked around this neighborhood on our way to meet Kat's cousin for drinks. I immediately recognized this as the Williamsburg of New York City. I also don't think I'm the only one who said this. There were mullets, there were cutoff vests, there were black boots. There is some grit to the streets. It's a very cool, like hip, young vibe with bars. We went to a brewery and I definitely felt like the least cool person in the bar, which is exactly how I felt when I lived in Brooklyn. I was just taking it in, taking a walk down memory lane. Okay, next up is King's Cross. The closest thing I can compare this to is Times Square. So everyone here is just doing their own thing. There's flashy lights, strip clubs, fast food. And as we were trying to fall asleep in our hostel, loud voices coming from the street, lots of partying in the middle of the night. And I even got to see some pigeons walking around, and there is the train station. Later on in the week, we visit Elizabeth Bay and Oxford Street. So this one is for the gays. So listen up, gays. Oxford Street is Hell's Kitchen, specifically the walk from Industry Bar or Flaming Saddles to Mickey's. So we essentially went to a few gay bars along this street, we danced, we had fun, and it immediately took me back to going to Flaming Saddles on a Wednesday night. Elizabeth Bay, okay, sorry if this is not exactly Elizabeth Bay, don't come for me if it's not, but I saw this area during the day, also saw it again at night, and it kind of reminds me of the West Village of New York City. It's quaint buildings and apartments. There's a certain charm to it that just makes you feel good while you're walking around. So I definitely say it's the West Village. Now we have Coogee Beach. So I've heard from a lot of people here that they love this beach or it's their favorite beach. It just feels very nice, secluded, maybe a bit of a family crowd, but it's also very easily accessible to busier areas of the city and maybe going out areas. So we felt like this was the Tribeca of New York City. There's definitely restaurants there, little places. We got a smoothie. This smoothie was so good, and it actually just tasted like a healthy smoothie, and I love it, and I want to go back. We first saw it when we started our Coogee to Bondi walk, and then again on our Bondi to Coogee walk because we did it wrong the first way. I'll get into that in a future video. That leads me to last but of course not least, Bondi Beach. So I just want to preface this by saying everybody said you're going to want to live by Bondi Beach. It's so fun. Obviously, it's an iconic place. Obviously, everybody knows about it who's not from Australia. The iconic pool looking over the ocean. Yes. So we literally cannot compare this to anywhere else but Coney Island. The boardwalk vibe. There's food. There's one ride, I think. Like a Ferris wheel. There's shops. It has a fun, lively vibe to it. Don't come for me, obviously, these are not the same, but that is the closest thing I can compare to New York City. Okay, well, hope my New York City lovers loved this video. We definitely have more neighborhoods to explore. We've heard that Surrey Hills is the East Village of New York City. So yeah, stay tuned for our next adventure.